Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make a DIY Dollar Tree door. I saw this in an LTD Commodities catalog, so forgive me for the terrible inspiration picture, but I wanted one and I did not want to spend $10 on it. So we're going to use this old Easter sign, but rest assured I'll show you how you could use any sign that's rectangular. And we're going to use some stickers. I've chose these ones. They're going to make that really nice trim plate that goes behind the doorknob. And then we're going to use a teeny tiny pumpkin for a doorknob. But if you have something else you could use, 100% go for it. I've decided to use some of the Waverly chalk paint in mineral as well as the Waverly chalk paint in ink. I was gifted these, or I bought one and gifted one, whatever, but you can use whatever color combination you want. I just really wanted to stick as close to the inspiration piece as possible because it matches my house. We're also going to use a teeny tiny piece of a dowel from the Dollar Tree, as well as one of the fat craft sticks from the Dollar Tree. And then of course we're going to use the utility knife of choice. Yay, this is my favorite. And of course with the utility knife goes the metal ruler, and of course a little bit of hot glue to put the hinges and the doorknob on. So I was excited to have this piece of signage left from Easter. The reason I was inspired to use it is because the bottom, where it looks like a broken up board, already looks like the bottom of the inspiration piece's door. But I'm going to show you, we're going to cut the top like uneven and jagged to look like a broken up old door. So you could take any rectangular piece. You really don't even have to make it look like an old weathered door if you don't want to, but I will show you how you can actually trim up this board relatively easy. I mean, at first I was thinking it was going to be pretty hard to like make all those curved and jagged little turns, but it really was relatively easy. I think I had the harder part trying to cut the straight pieces. I decided to cut off the little piece of hat that was sticking over, basically just to shore up the sides in rectangular fashion. So what I did was I lined my ruler up with the straight edge that was already there. I scored the back 5 or 6 times, and then I scored the front 4 or 5 times, and I was able to snap it off. I definitely recommend you cut through both back and front before you snap it. I forgot to on the first one, and I had a little bit more difficulty getting through the back after I already snapped it. But you see, it's really, really very easy. And if it doesn't come off and there's still some shreds of paper left, you could just take a piece of sandpaper and clean up those edges, because essentially chipboard is sort of pressed cardboard. But it's really, really dense, like, you know, high density fiberboard. It's really, really dense. I think it's medium density fiberboard. Let me take that back. Anyhow, then what I decided to do, because I'm using this particular piece, but if you're going to use another board, you can skip this step. But I was just trying to line up the 4 boards that make up this sign down in the bottom, so I can just make whatever kind of bottom pieces that I wanted. But I'll show you here. I've just taken a Sharpie and I've drawn on some. I made the first one nice and round, almost like a picket, so you guys have that option. I made the second one almost straight across with like a little knob, and that's another option. And then the final last 2, I actually did some like turning and stuff. So you guys can see what I did was just take the utility knife, you make it on its smallest blade setting, so just the tip is hanging out, and then you score it once as hard as you can along the line that you create, and then you'll be able to follow that channel. Just go a few more times following that channel. Then when you snap it off, and I want to do this on the paper side, I'm sorry, let me say that again. And then when you snap it off, you'll see you'll be able to remove most of the layers. And then whenever layers are left, you can cut with your scissor. I could not believe how easy this was to do after all of the times we've worked with chipboard and tried to cut chipboard. I feel like a fool. All right, I don't. But then what I found out was, hey, if I could do all that with my scissor, can I cut the chipboard with my scissor? And I actually was able to. I cut a notch in the chipboard with my scissor. I just went at it at one angle and then the opposing angle just to cut a little chip in the bottom. I was very impressed. No, I often impress myself. And then you see, you just want to take some sandpaper and clean up your edges. You can also use the sandpaper to create those notches. If you end up using a rectangular board and you wanted to create notches and you can't actually feel like you can cut with your scissor and you're scared of a utility knife, you could just take sandpaper, fold it 4 or 5 times to get a nice thick corner, and then just go at it perpendicular to the board. You can create indents that way as well. But of course, you can just make this like a door. You can still put the slats in it, so it looks like a farmhouse door, but you can just make it like a rectangle, and that's fine too. All right. But what we do is we're just going to coat it one coat of this mineral paint. I'm starting to like, get to that point in my life that maybe, that poor man pays twice kind of thing. Maybe the cheap paint isn't always great because you need two coats. But this is just one coat. And while it was still wet, I decided to take a tiny bit of the ink, and I used the chisel point of the foam brush to create those lines. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have mixed it with gray, made it just a little lighter than black, because I forgot I was going to write with black. I don't know. It was too late at the point where I already fixed it, but by the time I wrote it, it still looks nice in person though. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm taking the one popsicle stick, the tongue depressor size that we're using, and I'm cutting two pieces to create the hinges. Of course, this is just going to be relegated to how big your board is, how big you want your hinges to be. And this is just to accent it more like a door. If you saw in the inspiration piece, there was hinges on there. And there was actually like a real hinge that they took the one side and put it on the top, and the other side and put it on the bottom. And you can tell by the way the little knobs are that you stick the hinge into. Okay, anyway. So then what I've done is I've taken a tiny screwdriver. You can do this with an awl, or you can do this with, like the tip of your X-Acto knife. And I'm just creating the 3 holes. You could use your drill for this. Just be very careful. If you're going to use your drill with your little bit, I would drill through both of them at the same time. But what I did was I just put it over the hole in my ruler just to give it some give. If I tried to just drill in it while it was flat, it would take me a long time and I might chip it. I might end up cracking the board in half. But I'm just putting 3 holes in there just like a hinge would have. Okay? And I didn't worry about the little hinge pegs. I just wanted the effect. I didn't have to actually have a hinge. And then when I've done drilling those holes that they went all the way through, I sanded off the pieces that were sticking out. And then I set them aside to paint. I used the first one to measure the second one. Basically, as you could tell, that's why they're kind of mirror imaged. Now, I do want to tell you that I chose this pumpkin for a reason. To me, it looked like the doorknob in the inspiration piece. It looked like a doorknob. This was one of the pumpkins that were sort of from the Dollar Tree, that they were on a stem, and there was like 5 or 6 pumpkins. And I pushed the as you saw in the instructions, basically the thing that hung it was coming out of the bottom that I wanted to be the front of the doorknob. So I pushed that in, and I created sort of like, not the keyhole, but the little hole in the middle of the doorknob that you sometimes have. But you could skip that step if you want to, if you use a different pumpkin. I like this pumpkin because all of the ridges were very symmetrical. It wasn't like, a big ridge, a little ridge. It really did remind me of an old-fashioned doorknob. And then I stuck the dowel in the back with a little hot glue. Used my scissor to score around the dowel where I wanted to cut it, and then used my pliers to hold the dowel while I snapped it off. And then I just sanded off the edge. Okay? Then I've taken my tweezers and I'm painting everything. And the reason I wanted to use my tweezers is because I'm going to actually use it to hold the doorknob up, so that I didn't have to paint it twice, because otherwise you'd have to paint the top of the pumpkin, let it dry, and then paint the underside. Now we're going to work on the trim plate that's behind the doorknob, behind a lot of old-fashioned doorknobs. And I really did love this sticker the best. I just messed up. So this sticker would have been perfect. It's for the size of the door and the size of the doorknob. But here's what I didn't do. I didn't put the sticker on. I didn't put the trim plate on before I started writing. And I forgot to measure before I started writing. So you'll see here, I'm going to paint the whole thing. I'm going to paint the gold, and then it's a 2-layer sticker. So it's like a layer in the front with a little flower. I had to cut the flower off. But it's a beautiful shape. It does remind me a lot of a striker plate. The Dollar Tree does have other stickers that you can use depending on your door. I showed some examples in the beginning. But I basically painted this with some Waverly white chalk paint. Any white paint's fine. And then I set it aside to dry. And then I took out my big Sharpie and little Sharpie. You can do this all with little Sharpie. You can do this with paint. You could print out something with your Cricut. You could print it and trace it. You guys, we've done lots of tutorials on how to do writing on objects. But I'm, of course, just going to freehand it with my Farmhouse little font. I basically copied it, the font, right off of the inspiration piece. I just didn't space that properly, as you noticed. I got my B got a little big. But the saying says, whether you come for a visit or just to rest, may all who enter our home be blessed. No. You'll see it. But the big words were rest, home, and blessed. So I started off by putting blessed, and then I went up to left some spaces for the words. Then I put the word home and left some more spaces for words, and then I put the word rest. Most of the writing between the words is actually above the word rest, so that's why I left the most word up there, the most space, excuse me. But as you see, I did not leave a space for my trim plate. But we're going to rectify that in a few minutes. You'll see. But then I just took my regular Sharpie and I just printed it. If you saw in the inspiration piece, it was just a normal font, like a book print font or a Times New Roman. It was all in capitals, which is another thing that I decided not to do. I picked capitals and lowercase letters. And then it says, whether you come for a visit or just to rest, when you enter our home, may you be blessed. May you always be blessed. I don't remember what it says. I just made this. I don't remember what it says. But I will put the actual poem in the description box down below. Okay, so here is about where I realized that I didn't leave room for my my decorative plate, my trim plate, which, boo. So what I ended up doing is peeling off the top layer of the sticker, which was actually ended up being perfect shape and size, but because it didn't have any dimension, I went in with my my mineral Waverly chalk paint, and I just really, really roughly, not went around the edge, but left like a little space till the edge. And you could see there actually some of the paint got taken off when I was peeling the stickers apart. So I went ahead and I touched that up as well. And now for the pièce de résistance, we're going to put in the keyhole, which really makes this feel like a doorknob instead of a pumpkin on a stick. For a keyhole, you want to make a what would be a cone, really, honestly, or a triangle, a really long triangle with a ball on the top. That's how the best way to describe it. Okay, so now you can see it fits much better. We are going to cover a little bit of the swirly from home and from rest, but it will cover much better. But now what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually insert the doorknob into the trim plate. I just used my little screwdriver to create a hole, made it bigger with my scissor, and just kept doing that until I had it big enough to put the dowel through. Okay, and once I had the dowel through, I took the hot glue. I put the hot glue on the stickers as well as the doorknob, and I just laid it exactly where I wanted it to be. I forgot to push it in a little from the door, but I was able to move it before the glue set, and then just set it to dry. But wait, there's more. We're going to go ahead and distress it. Now, I wanted to show you, you could stop here. That's why I paused the video for a second, or I slowed the video for a second so that you could see what it looks like done now. But we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of weathering to it. I mixed a little bit of the mineral with a little bit of the ink, and I put it on a tissue, which is my new favorite way to rub paint on, apparently. And I just went ahead and I rubbed from the edges in. Then when I felt like it was a little too dark, I just went back in with a little bit more of the gray, and I went over and kind of tried to blend it in with a little bit of the wet black as well. Okay, and then when I finally got the mixture, I guess, that I wanted, I went ahead and I just put them in random spots where there wasn't words, just to give more of a weathered look to the door. Okay. And now we're going to put a hanger on. Now you can go ahead and use a sawtooth hanger you've been saving, maybe even a D-ring if you want. But what we're going to do here today, and something a little different, is we're going to do just a piece of jute. But we're not going to make one of our little nooses. We're going to take a piece of jute, tie a knot on both ends, and glue it to the back. This hanger is going to be 100% hidden. Now again, you don't have to make it hidden. You could put a ribbon. You can hang it from a ribbon. You can hang it from a piece of jute. You can do whatever your little heart desires. And that, my friends, is that. I am absolutely in love with it. I'm going to hang it outside. I have protected it with some Mod Podge, as you saw there. But that's just because I'm going to hang mine outside. But that's it. So guys, if you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Share with friends and family, anybody you know might be interested in making this or seeing any of these techniques. And if you haven't yet, click subscribe. When you do, a little bell will pop up. When you ring that bell, YouTube will let you know whenever I upload a new video. And as always, you take care, God bless, and we'll see you next time. Bye.